Thanks for that very kind introduction. Your Majesty, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a privilege for me to be here with you. It is my first time in Bhutan, and it's such a magical, if I can say, meditative place. When I was driving from the airport to this venue, it looked everything is in some state of mystical meditation. Before I come to my presentation, this gross national happiness, I've always been fascinated by it, of course, from a very academic, distant point. Sarve bhavantu sukhina. I mean, that's in our rich, very ancient Indian spiritual thought. We've grown with that concept. Also in Sikhism, that is my religion. So our everyday prayer ends with Sarbat da Bhala. Let everybody be happy, everybody be benefited. So when I was coming for this conference, so my daughter asked me, why are you going to Bhutan? So I said, it's a conference on gross national happiness. She said, what? Are you serious? So gross national happiness, she was not aware about it. So I promised a bit of a feedback tutorial to her when I go back. So I was, just trying to understand a little better the components of gross national happiness, which are given in the conference material also. So one thing which stood out very clearly for me is the psychological well-being. So to my mind, maybe you can blame it on my background, financial well-being earned through just, fair and sustainable means is probably a very important underpinning of psychological well-being. And I think that is perhaps where social stock exchange, this is an experiment in its very early stage, and I want to especially thank Dr. Andrew Shang, a very distinguished personality and who's been my mentor and a friend for many years. He validated this concept. I sent him a note. I told him this is what we are doing. He was so fascinated. He published it as his column. And so your validation, helps our conviction. So with that, let me, without further ado, get to the presentation. So what I'll try to do, I know I have a allotted time of 15 minutes, sir, and I hope you will allow me to exceed a little bit if I do. So I'll just tell you about the context and background, mainly, in the Indian context. Then it's very important, very critical to understand what exactly is social stock exchange, what are its key pillars, what are the innovative fundraising mechanisms that we are looking at, and where we are in India and what is the way forward. So, this context is applicable for all developing economies, including Bhutan, of course, India, where we need tons of money for development. Government spending and private capital is never enough. As per the latest estimate from a philanthropic report, we need about 4.2% of additional spending if we want to achieve our commitment to SDGs. We are committed to achieve SDGs of UN by 2030. So we need capital. We need to look beyond the government spending and the private capital. And we need loads of capital. It could come from philanthropy. It could come from blended. You could blend philanthropy with commercial capital and so on. So one context is for development you need money and the conventional sources are not enough. Second context, again, maybe more with reference to India and also elsewhere, there is a lot of philanthropy, capital which is coming into the system. In India, we have this CSR is mandatory. Companies are supposed to spend part of their profits on corporate social responsibility. There are, under law, certain activities, of course, dealing with, they resonate with SDG activities, health, education, poverty alleviation, and so on. So we have, what distinguishes us is that we have a mandatory requirement. There is no way, if you have a listed company, you have to keep aside certain portion of your profits. Cumulative net worth of HNIs, high net worth investors, affluent givers, it is on the rise. We see number of family foundations. Of course, big names are anyway been there for a while. And it is not just, the aspiration just to give money, but the aspiration is to create impact. It's almost like quasi-government sort of a role, where idea is to create a very meaningful impact in the society. So it's coming with a mission. It is coming with certain expectations. So the third context, so three contexts. One is government needs money. We need money for development. Second is philanthropy is picking up. Third context, which is more relevant in the Indian context, is, in the Indian system, is we have a very well-developed securities market. We are in the top 5 securities market today. We are rated by IMF, World Bank in terms of the global practices, in terms of the regulatory practices. We follow best of the practices. We are rated very well. We are growing very fast. Just to give you a sense of the growth, our market capitalization to GDP, which used to be less than 100% until very recently, is now more than 120%. And as I said earlier, we need to explore innovative financial structures, which is very crucial for any economy today. So, a little background, when the finance minister of India, she announced that a social stock exchange will be set up. This was about 5 years back. In her budget speech, that announcement was made. And she said that this will be set up under the aegis of SEBI, Securities and Exchange Board of India, where I work. Frankly, we didn't have the expertise. We are more of a financial regulator. We don't deal with, the social issues and the social side. So we created 2 committees. We admitted that we don't have the capacity and we need to collaborate with the relevant stakeholders. So Dr. Balu is sitting here. He is the chairman of our advisory committee on social stock exchange. So we got, people who were more knowledgeable than us and who helped us in developing this context. But what we could offer as a regulator was, can we leverage our securities market strengths for the benefit of the social sector? Can we facilitate raising of funds by social enterprises within the securities market domain? How can we develop new structure? Can we redevelop, recustomize the existing structures and mechanism, and then create associated regulatory? In a nutshell, can we leverage our regulatory skills for the benefit of social sector? That's what we asked ourselves, and that was our starting point. So what is social stock exchange? So you have securities market, you have social sector. So where they intersect. You could even visualize capitalism shaking hands with socialism in some sense. Stock exchange is a typical capitalistic institution, where greed is celebrated, if I can say. So, and regulators are supposed to keep it under control. So this is just a sort of a conceptual framework as to what a stock exchange or a stock market regulator is doing in the social sector space. So again, there was confusion in our country also when we started. Like we have this famous parable of 5 visually challenged people who are asked to describe an elephant, and they touch and they describe. They can't see the elephant, but they describe according to what they feel. Something like that. So somebody says it's a wall, it's a spear, it's a snake, it's a tree. So it's very important to be very clear. The question that we were asked when we started, are you setting up a separate stock exchange? We said, no, we are not setting up a separate stock exchange. It is just one additional segment on the existing stock exchange. Who can raise money? So basically, why do you go to stock exchange? Stock exchange also helps in capital formation. Who can raise money? Social enterprises. What is a social enterprise? Social enterprise is a non-profit organization and also a for-profit organization. For-profit organization which is interested not in just making profits but also creating an impact. Purpose over profit. That's very important. In fact, Master of Ceremonies said that very nicely. It is not just money, it is also the purpose. That's what we position, whether it is a non-profit or a for-profit, purpose over profits. It transcends conventional understanding. It is not just trading. You go to exchange for trading. There's no trading here, at least not as of now. Maybe we'll come up with something going forward. Listing, yes, and I'll talk about that. It should be visualized more as a loose structure of various instruments and mechanisms. Even a mutual fund could be used for, you could just say, my mutual fund returns, part of it can go to a social cause. And we did have a mutual fund scheme allowing that. You could have development impact bonds, and I'll talk about those things in a bit. So this framework, as I said, we developed after extensive consultation with relevant stakeholders. Let me now just take you a little further into it. So you have financial capital on the left-hand side. You have communities and social enterprises. Social enterprises and communities interact together and define the needs of the society, what is required to be done on the ground. And there is a purpose, identification of common purpose. Investors will finance to achieve certain purpose, and communities and enterprises want that. Social stock exchange comes as a channel of doing that. What does social stock exchange actually offer? It offers trust because there is a proper regulated mechanism. There is transparency. When you go to the exchange for raising money, whatever you are asking for, you have to justify, you have to give disclosures. Where will you utilize the money? How will you utilize the money? When will you utilize? When will the outcome be achieved? When you ask, you are transparent. When you use, you have to report back to the exchange every 6 months, every 1 year, what is the progress you are doing. Results, what are the results? So there is transparency on all the three elements: ask, use, and outcomes. Then there is an accountability. You are accountable to the investors, you are accountable to the regulator, you are accountable to the exchange. And all this leads to social impact. And I wish there were 2 arrows actually, and which should loop back to investors and communities. Social impact loops back. Let's go a little further. Community is at the heart of it. See, exchange is only a mechanism. It's only a means to an end. It's not an end in itself. Communities are at the heart of what we are trying to do. Social enterprises is the next circle, and social stock exchange is a higher circle. Let me explain this a bit. Social enterprises can appeal to the conscious of investors by having purposeful projects. Once the conscious of investors is satisfied, or they are on the same page, I think that is better to say, then they provide capital to the social enterprise. Then it leads to well-being, and outcome is well-being of the community as also of the investor. Investors have choice. Otherwise, in a bilateral model, you don't have choice. You are stuck with the donor is stuck with the donee, right? You have convenience. You can go to the platform, choose which activity resonates with you, pick social enterprise which is actually engaged in that activity, and finance. It builds, inspires confidence because you can see the results. It's more trustworthy. And all this is backed by a regulatory framework and regulators like us, I believe we are one of the first few to get into this. Others have also tried, and Dr. Balu can talk about it, but probably not much progress has been made in other jurisdictions. So this is basically the concept, how social stock exchange fits in the scheme of things. Again, just to draw a comparison, conventional donation versus social stock exchange model, as I said, there is that top-down model. The donor will have the agenda and donor will drive that agenda. But here it's ground-up marketplace model, many to one. It is not so much controlled by the donors because there are many people, there are many stakeholders. So it's a very nice marketplace to go to where you can actually leverage the strengths of the market for the benefit of social sector, by the non-profit organizations. As of now, we are focusing more on non-profits than for-profits, but there is a lot of potential there as well. Let's very quickly talk about the key pillars. We have an eligibility criteria, which social enterprise can actually come and raise money. What are the activities which are eligible for investments? They again come from our Companies Act, where the CSR money, mainly aligned with SDGs and national priorities. So one thing which Dr. Balu advised us, and I think it was a very good advice, that don't just create the exchange, you also create the entire ecosystem. And the ecosystem goes beyond the regulator. So we have social impact assessors, where once the disclosures are made on the achievements done by the non-profit organization, the disclosures have to be verified by a social impact assessor. So we have a framework for that as well. There is a self-regulatory organization which registers social impact assessors. We have a training institute which trains the social impact assessors, and certificate is given. Only those which are certified can actually act as a social impact assessor. We have a capacity building fund. So see, lot of smaller non-profit organizations are not familiar with how stock exchanges work. They need a little bit of hand-holding, and that hand-holding has to be done by a capacity building fund, which can give some grants or some interest-free loans and guide them through this entire process to come on the exchange and list and raise money. We have the requirements of disclosure, initial disclosure, continuous disclosure. We have the, and those initial disclosures are what will you do with the money, essentially, in a nutshell. Continuous is what is the progress you are making with the fund utilization and what is the outcome you are creating. In the interest of time, I will move on because there are a lot of details here, but the idea of this slide is that you need to create an entire ecosystem. These are the key pillars which have to move together for making it a success. I will just quickly talk about two, three examples of fundraising mechanisms. So this is my favorite, and this we worked really hard and we brainstormed a lot before coming up with this instrument. So basically, when you go to the exchange, you need to list your security. Like you do an IPO, IPO is listed on the exchange. So you need a mechanism to get on the exchange. So we came up with this unique instrument called zero coupon, zero principal instrument, which means that there is no promise of any financial return to be made to the investor. There is no interest payment, there is no dividend payment, no payment of principal amount also. But, so you can say, then what is the big deal? It is just a donation. It's not donation. It is more than donation. It comes with the promise of a social return. And mind you, we put that in our law. And it took us some time to convince our legislators that you need to put this element of social return to define a security. Otherwise, security always comes with a financial return. So it carries a promise to deliver social impact. That is what distinguishes this instrument. And again, there is minimum size, 5 million, minimum application size, Indian rupees 1,000. You could just, buy this instrument for as low as 1,000. It is notified as a security, which I mentioned. It's not traded as of now. This is just a visual explaining the ZCZP, the specific project, no coupon, no principal repayment, social returns. We've had some ZCZP issuances. So this is one Council for Green Revolution. They are, they are in the state of Andhra Pradesh, active in the environmental space, focusing on education, initiative and advocacy. Fundraising is Indian rupees 6.9 million. They listed on 4th June, actually last month. And objective is to nurturing young earth leaders for a sustainable future. Their maturity date, this is a proposed impact, I'll not read this out. Maturity date is August 29, 2026, which means that they will utilize the money and start having impact in this period, but the impact would of course continue going forward. Another illustration, this was a big one, this Swadesh Foundation. They raised 100 million rupees from the platform. Their listing date was August 2024. They are engaged in upliftment of rural lives across health, education, water, sanitation, and so on. Objects again were household sanitation, creating sustainable livelihoods. Expected outcomes, create open defecation-free villages, self-reliance, rural youth, complete education up to class 12 and so on. Maturity date is February 8, 2026. And we will get disclosures as we go along, what is happening to this project. So that is the beauty of it. If you ask me to sum it up, trust, transparency, accountability. That's what makes a difference. Another very unique structure, this we tried in our state of Rajasthan, Educate Girls Child Project. This is a development impact bond structure. Basically, outcome funder, it could be a government or it could even be, in this case, it was a UK-based Children's Investment Fund Foundation. They are the outcome funders. They find an investor. UBS stepped in here, which is a private investor. They will definitely have a little markup on what they're doing. They're not doing it for free. That's their incentive. But it is not a huge markup. They take over the project, they complete the project, and there is a service provider, which is a non-profit here, and then there is an outcome evaluator. So there are social outcomes achieved through the service provider, financed by the investor. But the beauty is, outcome payer pays only when he sees results on the ground. He doesn't pay otherwise. It is linked, I will pay if you succeed. Pay for success. And, at times we've seen there are many leakages when the government departments run social programs, and perhaps those leakages could be avoided if these experiments are tried. There is definitely a little bit of markup, but it is worth it. It is probably less than the cost of doing it yourself, because you don't have the expertise in everything. So this was a huge success, and we are trying to see if we can replicate this model in other states also. And by the way, UBS had a 15% IRR on this. And these are the results, very good results. I'll again not read out. Good outreach, good outcomes. We also have this social impact fund, which is a 100% grants and grant out vehicle, where people can actually invest in a fund which will invest in social causes. This is again covered by SEBI. We have an alternative investment fund structure, we register them, but we're not seeing much traction here. This needs a little bit of more advocacy, more motivation for people to do it. And they can actually subscribe to ZCZP. Even development impact bond, we've seen how social stock exchange can fit in there. Status and the way forward. We've got 140 unique NPOs which have registered with us. So there are two processes. One is you register, you need not raise money. After registration, you can explore raising money. But registration also gives you more credibility. Actually, it raises your profile. You are in a better position to raise money from donors. ZCZP issuance, we had 14. Total funds raised is 432 million. 1,600 odd people have already taken certification for acting as a social impact assessor. Capacity building fund we've set up is 1 billion rupees. Initial corpus is 100 million, but not much traction. We are working on this to activate this fund. Yes. We have an advisory committee and so on. So this is, we need to promote the market adoption. Key indicators for success would be, emerging as a top channel for donors and issuers. It will unlock new capital. It will drive social impact. Let me just very quickly, sorry, I'll just take 1 more minute. I saw the flag. I am in Bhutan and I can't help sharing my favorite Zen story. The story goes like this. This is an artificial intelligence image done by my daughter again. I just gave her the story and she created this picture. So the 2 temples, both temples are at loggerheads. They don't like each other. And there's very clear instruction to every resident. You will not speak to the other if in case you meet them. They are dangerous people. Same narrative given to the residents, inmates. There's a child who's there in the monastery, and there's a child in the other monastery also. And if you tell children don't do something, they will definitely try that, So, so this child actually goes out and meets the child from the other monastery, and they're walking, and he just asks him, hey, where are you going? Now the other child, he's heard a lot of, lot of discourses. He says, where can I go? Wherever, I am like a leaf. Wherever the wind takes me, I'll go there. I don't go anywhere. So this child who asked the question is quite stumped. He says, look, I asked a very simple question and he's giving me all this philosophy. He goes back to his people. He says, look, I made a mistake. You had warned me not to speak to them. But I asked this question and this is the reply I got. He said, look, you shouldn't have gone. We had warned you. But now that you've done, you go back again tomorrow and you ask the same question. He'll give you the same reply, wherever the wind takes me. So you say, what if there is no wind? Okay, fine. He memorizes that, goes there, and he says, hey, where are you going? He says, where am I going? I go wherever my legs take me. He didn't give the other answer. Again, this fellow is dumbfounded, comes back. He says, look, now today he told this. He says, no problem. You go again there tomorrow. We have to defeat them. They are our enemies. So now tomorrow when he says this, you say that, and it is a very stupid answer, we know, but you say that. What if your legs just don't move? What will you do? So it's not polite to ask, but you say this because we have to anyway defeat them. So he goes, he says, hey, where are you going? Next morning, oh, I'm just going to fetch vegetables. So the moral of the story is that our existing manuals, our existing standard operating procedures, many a times they fail. Life keep asking you, new questions, new challenges, and that's why we need to think of some newer ways of doing things. So I'll just pause with that. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I took more time than allotted.